It's Wednesday. We are live. Welcome back to another Slightly Average Guys podcast episode. We appreciate everybody joining. We are glad to be back. I know for me especially, I've been out for, I feel like it's been a month, to be honest. I feel like it's been a really long time. But I'm glad to be back in the swing of things, and I'm excited to get this thing started.
Yeah, we were actually talking just a few seconds ago, and we were trying to figure out when the last time you actually were on, because there's been a few weeks where things couldn't happen. So last week I was out. I was back in Indiana for a short bit. The week before that you were out.
Yep.
And I think the week before that we didn't do anything.
Yeah, because I think Andy was out and I was also out of town or something like that. So
that
been a
was
solid 3 weeks.
Yeah, that was the one where you're like, hey, yeah, I instantly had to fly somewhere for work. So it's been all over the place.
And the week before that, I also had to fly to work. So it was 2 weeks in a row where I couldn't do it. So I'm not. It has been 1 month since I've been doing this. Yep. So I apologize, but I'm back in action. Not traveling in the near future, at least that I know of. But we'll see.
Yep, and we are missing another nut. So even though Ryan's back, you're dealing with Ryan squared today. Andy is out taking care of his daughter's soccer practice because he's doing the proper parenting thing and being the chauffeur, running his kids all over town. So,
is that what you do when you're a parent? You don't just like have them walk home?
Well, it depends upon the level. So, like as they grow and as they age, you change, but essentially you're just there to help the kid all the time, right? Like, so mine's a toddler. Basically, that just means I chase him all over the house or wherever he's at to make sure that he's not about to jump off something or pull something down on top of him. Andy's are, one's right at the teenager level. So it's essentially, at that point, you truly are just a chauffeur.
This is so crazy. Like, you chauffeur your kids everywhere. I mean, we're in Phoenix. We kind of understand that you're going to be driving everywhere, but when it was the Midwest, and this is, we already sidetracked, already getting off topic.
No, we don't have a topic yet, so it's working out.
But when you're like a little kid, I literally remember either riding my bike, which was a solid 15, 20-minute ride to work when I was in high school, to middle school. I even remember probably not in middle or elementary school, to be honest, but middle school, 7th, 8th grade. I'm walking there. Nobody does that anymore because you can't trust anybody, and that is so weird.
Yeah, it's the weird world that we live in now. And like, it's funny that you bring it up because I was thinking my recent trip back to Indiana and just seeing how things are that are still not as great. Like here, it's just a whole different pace. And like you're talking about, like trust level there, you still have some, but it's still totally different from when we grew up. And I was like, man, I remember the days where I was a young kid and it was just like, I'd go out ride my bike, like, 8 blocks away from my house. Cause we lived in this huge, addition, and I just rode around, did whatever I want and go on trails and different crap. And, I don't know if your mom did it, but mine, to where it was dinner time and she'd just scream out the door, my name at the top of her lungs, and I'd probably hear her sometimes. Most of the time I knew if the street lights were on, I needed to be back. But, it's funny because if your mom just yelled out the door like a name now, somebody would probably call CPS on you. But
yeah, it's crazy. I blocks and blocks and blocks and miles to that point. I would ride my bike everywhere.
Yeah,
and these are like country roads, right, where people drive 60 miles an hour because why not?
Yep, exactly. It's just that's what you do, right? And
you
didn't have as much worry. And now I'm a parent and just thinking of all the craziness that this kid's probably going to get into and trying to not be the helicopter parent that ends up happening nowadays. My invisible wife wants to always, try to be the helicopter parent. I'm like, just let him. It's okay. He's fine. He's got to trip. He's got to fall. It's got to happen no matter if you're there or not. So let him do his thing. And it's all good. So he's off. Andy's off doing the parental thing that he's supposed to do and dealing with the kid at soccer practice, which means for those watching live that we may actually end up changing it because he's got a change in his schedule where 7:30s on Wednesdays just is really hard for him to try to be here by that time. So we're either going to have to move it later or move it to a different day again. So we may end up with it back on Tuesdays or something. We haven't talked about it yet, but just look for that going forward, and we'll make an announcement so everybody's in the know. If you're listening to it in an audio podcast after the fact, not going to matter. Keep listening, keep watching whenever you want. All right. Let's jump into a few things here. I just recently got back from Indiana, and I was recently traveling. Ryan, you've been traveling for work quite a bit recently, actually, compared to all of the last 18 months. And
Absolutely.
I've had two different things happen to me on this trip going to Indiana that
Oh God.
I want to know if you have these things happen to you. Okay. First and foremost, I feel like I'm a ghost. I don't know if it's because I'm very pasty, or literally I may be a ghost and I just see dead people, because I go up to where was I? I was in, my connecting flight was in Dallas Fort Worth. And in Dallas Fort Worth, I had a very short, and we were late getting in. So it was a very close connecting flight, but I had enough time to go to the bathroom. So I'm going to the bathroom and I go to wash my hands, and everything's automated now. Everything. So, the soap's automated, the dryers are automated, the wash your hands things are automated. I can't get any of these things to work. I'm like, I literally can't get these things to work. I'm at like the third.
Not even the hand things,
dude. It took me the third sink to get the soap, or the second sink to get the soap to work, the third sink to get the faucet to work. So I'm doing it, and I'm just like, I must have not had my hands in the right place, but I was like waving them all over under the faucet trying to get it to work. Two guys next to me just walk up and like, psh, it sinks turn on, everything. I'm like, I literally must be dead.
Idiot, you're doing it wrong.
So I'm like, whatever. So there was somebody else at the dryer before me, so he gets it and it's running. I see exactly where his hands are. I go up to try to dry my hands. It literally will not see me. I'm like, I don't get it.
You just have to be too pale.
Yeah,
you're too pale. It doesn't work for you.
Too pale, or maybe I there was a bump or something that you had to do to get it to kick off and start.
It's the code.
Yeah.
But no, I've seen that. I've seen it all over the place on memes, videos, shorts, whatever you want to call them. And I see it all the time. I've never had a problem.
Oh.
Sometimes the soap dispenser literally just doesn't work.
Yeah.
So that is the problem. But my question to you, though, and everybody else that is also has this problem, how many times do you try until you move on? Is it like a 1, 2, like I'm thinking soap dispenser, right?
Yeah.
1, nothing. 2, nothing. 3, nothing. Okay, give it a second. Maybe it just needs a time to think. 4, nothing. Like, is it after 4 or 5 where you're moving on?
My all depends upon if there's somebody else at like the sink adjacent to me that I could just move to quickly. Because like by the third, it's a 3 strike you're out thing. Either I am too dumb to make this thing work, or it just seriously doesn't work, right?
Yeah, or like how many upside down waves for the sink? Like, yeah. Come on, buddy.
Yeah, and that's like, and that one's a little different, because you're like, okay, I could be waving my hand too fast. Let me wave it a little bit slower. Let me act like I'm rinsing my hands, even though the water's not on. And then people are looking at you like, what is this guy doing? The water's not on. So you get all these weird. Anyway, this is just crazy. It goes through my head.
But I mean, the stuff that I've seen online though, as far as like the stuff, I don't want to call it going viral, but it's some of the more popular videos all have to do with the color of your skin.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
It's typically that doesn't do it, and that's probably why it goes viral, because it's like, oh, it's a racist soap dispenser, or it's a racist water faucet.
Yeah, which I've seen too, but like I was like want to blow a hole in it by one sheer fact. Okay, I have never had a problem with a urinal that uses the exact same electronic sensing system pointed directly at me when I'm peeing. It always sees you, and then sometimes it sees you and then decides it's going to flush even though you're still standing there in the middle of it. But it at least started, and it saw you, and it tripped the thing. Never had a single problem with that. Right?
Probably because the color of your shirt. This is just straight up hands,
you know? That's true. I didn't even think of that.
You're super freaking pale, and it doesn't pick it up. This one picks up your shirt because it's a solid color most of the time.
Oh. So the other thing
that's the science behind it, by the way. I physically know this stuff. Oh, okay. This isn't opinions.
All right. It's CDC fact. All right. No. Along the same line, because my buddy back in Indiana literally hates this fact, but the fact that do you have a problem with the hand dryers? And I'm gonna like, he has a problem with any of them. But like, I'm specifically going to call out the damn Dyson ones that you have to like hand blade your hands in, and you're like, I don't want to touch the side of this thing. Okay, it's just like the most awkward action that you have to do in order to get your hands in and out of it to try to get it to dry your hands, and then you're like, how long do I have before again it times out?
I got a trick. I have a trick for you.
Okay,
it's not even a trick. It's just me being me and doing me. But I totally agree with you. So one note, yes. Why would you want to put your hands in there? You don't want to touch any of that side stuff, especially with all this COVID stuff, like pre-COVID, whatever, like not a big deal. But now everybody thinks about, I just touched the same thing as somebody else. That's gross. I don't want to ever do that. And it's impossible because the hand things are like pushing you back and forth, and you're just like trying to keep your hands as steady as possible, and it's impossible. I went to, he doesn't work for our company anymore, but he went to a trade show with me, and he was like, Ryan, I never use those things. He goes, can I use your shirt? Use your own shirt. Why do you have to use my shirt? That's
what I'm thinking.
He's like, yeah, that's a good point. I'll just use my own shirt. He literally asked me that because he's like, I can't touch and that's the only ones they had was the Dyson ones. And he's super germaphobe. He's not doing those. So he wipes his hands on himself. But anyways, back to my technique. And you will still touch the sides. I'm sorry, I can't get away from that. But step one, you do a slow blade. And you start with the front, back of the hands. Doesn't matter where you start, but start somewhere. Do a slow blade closest to that side you want to dry. So if this is the side you want to dry, then your hands are super close to the fan, and you go up and down real quick, and then you do the back side of your hands to the other side of where the air is coming out, super close. You don't do it in the middle, because then you just look like a fool going up and down, up and down, up, and you're trying to. So that's my little tip and trick to drying your hands with the Dyson blades.
Okay. I like that. It makes sense in the action of you right now that is playing of you doing this. So the other question I have, it's funny that your buddy is kind of a germaphobe. My friend, he's not a germaphobe, but he literally feels like the dryer thing makes him become a germaphobe, because he's like, okay, first off, most people do not wash their hands long enough. Okay. And I think we can all agree, because like there's like always like, it could be like 42 urinals in any bathroom. It doesn't matter if it's a stadium bathroom or anything else. And there's 3 sinks. Like if everybody legitimately took the appropriate amount of time, 20 to 30 seconds to wash your hands, we would all be here for 36 minutes, in order to try to just rotate through the bathroom.
There wouldn't be a line to the bathroom anymore. There'd be a line to the sinks.
Yeah. But in general, most people are like, oh, okay, yeah, I got 5 seconds. All right, I'm out. So his big thing is like, all right, I know everybody doesn't wash their hands enough. So then he's like, all right, now you're over by this stupid air blower that's literally blowing the freaking germs everywhere. He's like, versus a paper towel, at least it stayed on the paper towel and you threw it away.
Yeah, that's crazy, because if you back to the Dyson, some of them have like the side blades where they blow air to the side, and
that's
you don't
the one.
Stick your hands.
That's
in
the
them.
one that I at Dallas that I couldn't get to like detect me at all. But yeah.
Okay, yeah, so that just blows all the water and everything on the ground.
Your pants are always covered in it.
Yeah, that just have to clean that stuff up, and it's like sneezing on a mirror.
Yeah.
Or brushing your toothbrush in front of a mirror, where you're always going to get like debris going on the mirror, and then it looks like crap. It's like the same thing, except it's not a mirror, obviously. So I feel like it causes more of a mess than it actually like helps.
Yep, exactly. So that's his point, is the mess, and 2, that it just throws germs. So I'm glad his logic is sound, and it's not just us acting crazy just for a podcast. Like this is literally the things that go through my head. So
I would say his opinion is confirmed by the Slightly Average guys.
Well, all right.
Opinion confirmed. Check.
So I go out of the restroom and find out that my plane's been delayed by like 10 minutes, which is great because I haven't eaten anything all day long. And I'm like, all right, I need to grab something to eat. Is there any place right here that I don't have to walk 32 minutes to go to and then try to come back? And sure enough, there was a little there was part of it was like a grab and go, and then the other part was like literally like a sandwich pizzeria place, and they all had like personal pizzas, right? So they were the smaller ones, and they already had some of them pre-made. So I'm like, all right, I can grab this one real quick, right? If I have to take it on the plane, I can take it on the plane with me. I can sit down and eat it, whatever. That doesn't really matter. But I didn't have time to wait for them to make something, so that's why I
For
bought
sure.
this.
Yeah.
Okay, it was a deep dish pizza place, and I don't know about you, but I am not a deep dish pizza fan. And the reason why I'm not a deep dish pizza fan, and I was like, maybe I'm making this up in my head and it's not as good or it's better than what I thought. I'm just, digging myself a deeper hole. But I was like, in my head, I'm like, every time I think of a deep dish pizza, I pretty much think of a bread bowl with, sauce and cheese that's like a soup in the middle of it, which is not what I want on my pizza. So I'm like, this isn't going to be good. But I was like, it's what they have. I'll go ahead and get it. So I go ahead and get it. And sit down, open up the thing. I'm like, I really wish I wouldn't have got this. As soon as I opened it, it was exactly what I thought it was going to be, and it was pepperoni, cheese, soup, and bread that was so soggy that it was like a sofa mattress, and it wasn't like a Sicilian pizza, because you can get like this really thick Sicilian pizza, which at least has great flavor and it's not that wet. Every time I've had a Chicago style deep dish pizza, it's just wet, like somebody peed on a mattress and they want you to eat it.
It's like it's a soup. It's like tomato paste.
Yeah.
But
Exactly.
it's more liquidy, especially if you get like the really bad pizzas, right? They're way more liquid, like the tomato pastes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Ugh.
And
It's just not a fan.
so
I'm not a fan at
so
all.
you're not a fan either. So good.
No, because like when I think of pizza, I think of like a nice crispy crust. You know how some people like fold their pizzas in half to support it? No, I want this thing to be a diving board and a plank. So when I bite into it, there's a crunch in every bite.
Yeah.
You don't have that with deep dish pizza.
Yeah.
It's just all sauce.
like-
And I'm not a big sauce person in general. I like the sausage. I like to taste the toppings. Right? Like my dad once said, I was like, he said, cut up an onion for me. Okay, I'll cut up an onion for you. How thick do you want your onions cut? I want to taste my onions.
Mhm.
Right? So like, okay, I'll cut it in decent size, like dice method. I don't know how to say that. But when you're getting a deep dish pizza, all you can taste is the sauce.
Yeah.
Like that's it. I want to taste other things. I want to taste the sausage. I want to taste the onions, the peppers. I want to taste the cheese, and I want to be able to feel the crust, not just go to a hot dog eating contest and eat the bread because it's full of liquid.
Yeah, but I think that may even be better, because it's just, something puts me off so bad about the cheese sauce consistency of what I ate, that it literally made me ill. Like, because I still had to eat it, because I'm like, I'm still starving, and it's gonna be another 4.5 hours before I finally land. So, anyway,
a deep dish pizza is called lasagna.
don't you hate on lasagna like that? There's no reason to put lasagna through that category.
I do like lasagna.
I know,
but a deep dish pizza is lasagna without the noodles.
It's lasagna bread instead of pasta. It's got bread.
But it's not even layered bread. It's just bread on the bottom with pasta and
it's wet dough.
Wet dough.
All right. Well, then,
Robin. Oh, we got some new listeners. This is great. Thanks, Robin, for joining us. We're talking about deep dish pizza.
Yeah.
This is who you dealt with today, but I do appreciate everything. So that was fun today. So thank you.
So, all right, let me ask you then the next question, because it goes along with the eating, right? So everything's trying to tie one thing into the next. Would you rather eat everything a 3-year-old picks up to eat for a year, meaning whatever they pick up and eat, you have to pick up and eat for a year, or do everything an 80-year-old does for a year?
That's an easy question for me, and I think this is an easy question for. I don't know for who, but this is a super easy question for me. I would much rather eat whatever a 3-year-old eats all day. I'll do it right now. I don't care, because I know your son is not even 3 years old yet, and I know what he eats. He eats good.
Yeah, depends upon the 3-year-old, really. Is
and
what the
he
first
eats
question.
Snacks and crackers, and they just eat whatever they want, and depending on obviously who's feeding them. right? They could eat junk food or just good food. But I
Yeah.
know what your son eats, and he's not 3, and I love what he eats because I eat the same stuff. But when you look at it from the other, would I rather do what an 80-year-old person does all day? Pause. What do they do all day?
Again, depends upon the
They're not
80-year-old.
gardening. I don't know how mobile you are at 80, to be honest. Like, I don't know what an 80-year-old person. I can't picture that.
Well, I mean, it really depends upon the people. Like your parents, when they're 80, are probably going to still try to be off and doing something, right? Other people, they're not going to be that way because they're just not that. It's not outdoorsy active, right? It depends upon how active you are living up to it. But the general piece is, I would agree with you, right? You're not doing a lot of external activities. It's a lot sitting around watching TV, or you just have Fox News on, and that's all that you're doing all day long is listening.
Yeah, my active life when I'm 80 is, hey, honey, do you want to go out to eat? And then you just go back home, and that was your activity for the day.
Then what happens is, what?
That sounded perfect in my ears.
Hopefully it came across the same way for everybody.
I hope it did too, because it sounded perfect. It literally sounded like you were in a different room.
So my answer first, I have a question. My question is like, what's the result? Am I getting a prize off of this, or is it just saying my general opinion? If I'm getting a prize, it really doesn't matter, because what I'm going to make the statement of, I have a 2.5-year-old, as Ryan stated. I already eat everything a 3-year-old eats, because whatever he picks up, he's jamming in your mouth as a parent. That just happens.
Oh,
he's like, here. I'm like, where did you just get that? Like, was that just in the dog's mouth? Yeah, was that just in the dog's mouth? I think that was in the dog's mouth. Great. So, hands down, I'm already in the top category of eating everything a 3-year-old eats. Now, if I can get a reward like $1 million, if I do that, I'd like, let's bring that on. So
yeah, well, if let's switch up the roles. We'll give you $1 million if you do everything an 80-year-old does for a year. I'll give you $100,000 to do everything a toddler does, eats for a year. Which one are you doing? I know that's a lot of money, right? So maybe let's make it less of a big difference. So it's $200,000 to do what a 80-year-old does, and it's $100,000 to eat what a toddler does for a year. I'm still choosing the eating. Right?
Man, I mean, I could do nothing.
It's $100,000. I mean, that's a lot of money.
Yeah, exactly. Really, it's $100,000. You know,
that's a down payment on a house.
Yeah. See, the guy that's looking for a home right now, like now you're rethinking your thought. You're like, well, it's just
now
another 12
I'm rethinking. Yeah.
Hey,
I mean, could use that.
Like, let's look at reality here. The reality is that you already work from home, and you're already sitting still most of the time, and you're just doing a work-related thing. There's not much difference if you just like didn't have to work, right? Because you were getting paid this just to be, you know, sit around and not do anything. It's like, wait a minute, I could just Netflix and chill for a year with myself. That came across wrong. That's not totally what I meant, but you all know what I meant.
Roger, it is very easy to sit on your ass.
It
is really easy. I do it all day, every day, but I'm working. But yes, very easy.
All right. This has no tie-in in the slightest. I don't know how to tie this in, even though I can be completely random. But here we go. That was a random space, question that was out in the middle of nowhere. So let's just go to space. All right. Would you go to space? And this is honor of the fact that today, September 15th at like 5:30 Arizona time, SpaceX just launched the first all-civilian rocket, and it's going to orbit the Earth like I think 3 or 4 days before they're actually going to come back down. So 4 just civilians that they randomly picked, and they all got to go to space for an extended period of time. I'm like, that's just absolutely crazy. Would you do that if you didn't have to pay for anything? And let's say there was a year's worth of training that you had to do where you could still work, right? But you had to take time off to go to certain things and stuff like that. Would you do it?
So I have a question. All civilian, there's got to be a pilot.
So there's one person that is considered the commander, but the whole entire ship is autonomous, so they're not actually doing anything. But there is one
But
person that's
in the
trained.
event that something would happen, he would be the commander and probably pilot, or he knows what he's doing.
Yeah, yeah.
Let's just put it that way.
One person has more training to be able to actually. They all have some training, but one person is very educated in the systems that are on there in order to help them, figure stuff out.
I would absolutely 100%. Especially, we were talking about this a little bit earlier, but especially if it was free. Like in my current state, would I pay hundreds of thousands of dollars? I mean, no, I wouldn't. Would I like to? Yes. But if it was free, sign me up.
Mm-hmm.
Where do I do this? SpaceX? Do I have to submit a resume? Do I have to work out and say like I'm in shape to be handle like the G forces or whatnot? I don't know. I picture like those things that they spin you around in when you go to space, and you're just like this in a chair, and you're just like.
It's also a carny ride called like the Gravitron,
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I absolutely feel like that's kind of the thing. But yes, 100%, I would absolutely go. And are they like in space, like floating, or are they just kind of like
no, they're
on the atmosphere?
No, I mean they're in space floating because they're going to be orbiting for it's at least 3 days. I can't remember. I think on the 4th day they're coming back down. So it's 3 full days, I believe, in space up there. Which I don't understand how that works in the capsule. I literally got notified at like 5 o'clock that this was happening, and I turned it on. So, and I was still mildly working, so I didn't have total attention span just on that one piece. But I'm giving you the Spark Notes version of what's actually happening.
Spark Notes, is that even a thing anymore?
Yes, it at least is, because I went into a Barnes and Noble bookstore like 2 months ago, and which, FYI, those are still a thing as well. And just happened to walk past the thing that was a whole bunch of Spark Notes.
That's hilarious. So Ryan, are you going to space?
Yes, absolutely, hands down, totally would. Wouldn't care about the risk. It would just, I just think it'd be totally fun.
Yeah, risk over reward, right?
Yeah.
The reward would be so much greater.
The what? The reward?
That's a hard word to say.
Reward. Reward, not reward.
Reward.
And if Andy was here, Andy would absolutely 100% say hell yes. And the reason why he would say hell yes is because A, he's super conspiracy theorist, and would just love to be like, I need to take a cell phone, I need to take my own GoPro, whatever else. I just want to like put the flat earth people to rest. We're going to like live stream the whole entire thing. He's like, and then the moment that they start to tell me that I can't do these certain things, he's like, now I'm going to start questioning my own reality and realize that I may be in the Matrix.
You can't record this, sir, on your own personal device.
Yeah.
Why not?
What?
All right, so there's like screens that they have. It looks like a window,
Mm-hmm.
right? But it's a screen, and it looks like you're looking outside at a big city landscape, but you're not. It's a screen.
Yeah.
Maybe they do those in the space station. You never know. Maybe they're like, you're in space, dude. And it's just a screen of what we picture there. That's going down a whole rabbit hole.
Dude.
That's Andy's realm.
Yeah,
We'll leave that for Andy.
Yeah, you're taking his spot instead. Here we can just go to this, so that way it's just Andy's in the darkness. Andy's in the dark, and if he was here, he would probably have a conspiracy about why it's also dark from that standpoint. So.
But they didn't have those like windows that were just TV screens back. They didn't have that back then.
Oh, back
they
when
had
like
live footage.
Okay. Also, let's point out something. Your mom picked up my son today and brought him home from daycare. And
I can't believe her.
She comes in and it's like, hey, what'd you just turn on? And I'm like, oh, it's the SpaceX thing. It's all 4 different people. She's like, well, what are they doing? Going to the moon? I'm like, no. She's like, well, then if they're not going to the moon, what are they doing? I'm like, well, there is a space station, but that's not where they're going. She's like, well, what do we do then? I'm like, they're just going to orbit for 3 different times. She's like, so they're not going to the moon though? I'm like, first off, Mary, nobody's been to the moon since like in the 70s or something like that. I was like, it's been 50
like the
years.
Challenger.
Yeah, it's been like 50 years since we actually have been to the moon. We've sent things that have landed on the moon, the laser thing that you're supposed to be able to shoot up at, and it reflects and comes back down. I was like, but we haven't actually gone to the moon in a very, very, very long time. She's like, nah, you're wrong. I'm like, let's look this up. I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
Did you look it up?
I didn't look it up. because I just didn't want to, be right again. So, but I'm 90.
1972, Apollo
I said
17.
76 was when I was just randomly saying it to her. I said it's like
Good old
76.
fashioned.
So I'm good. And that was just orbiting. That still wasn't landing on the moon, right?
Landing date was December 11th,
Okay.
1972. Landing
Yeah,
date.
72. All right. So I would just like to point out that I was right, and that we're, from my understanding, they are looking at going there again for some wacky, crazy reason. Probably to pick up more cheese because that's what the moon is made out of. All right. I have one final question for you, Ryan. This final question, if you so choose to answer it, is about birthdays. What is the proper protocol?
Birthdays.
Yeah, what's the proper protocol when it comes to people wishing you a happy birthday on social media? So you are the receivee of it. Are you required to post a thank you for all the birthday wishes, or do you have to reply to each one, or do you just need to like it? Should you love it? Should you do the little weird huggy character?
This is a touchy topic. Not even like touchy, but it's just like I'm not a Facebook user. I've been becoming more of a Facebook user just to browse and like try to get back into it really, because I think there are a lot of connections that you could be making from like old friends, high school friends, all that good stuff that you just don't anymore. Not that I'm reaching out and commenting like, "Hey man, how's it going?" But I'm just like browsing to see what they're up to and if somebody comes out to Arizona, I don't know. But anyways, throughout my years of birthdays, I've had many people post on my Facebook saying happy birthday. And I just keep scrolling and scrolling and scrolling. Who are you? I don't know who you are. Wow, I hated you in high school. Blah 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 blah. I'm just like, who are these people and why are you wishing me a happy birthday? Like, I totally get it if like I don't know. It's so weird, right? I totally get there's a different side of that, whether it's like you were best friends. Like I totally understand whether like you played on the same sports and you got along, but you just never really hung out. But like there's legit people that don't know who you are, or that I don't know who they are, or I just physically did not like them. And they're posting and they're like, happy birthday, which doesn't actually answer your question, and I know that, but I'll get to that.
You just went on a Facebook rant about, having a whole
did.
bunch of friends that aren't really friends. I purged that list long ago, but
Yeah, and I've cleaned it up a long time ago too. But to answer your question, yes, now that I have been more, I don't want to say knowledgeable, but more inclined to get on Facebook more often, I will say thank you for the birthday wishes. Period. That's it. I won't go like any of them. I will not comment on any of them. Thank you for the birthday wishes. And if you're really a true friend, then you're going back to that and you're liking my posts anyways.
see, like I'm mildly the same way, but I have a little bit different look on it. Takes me no time at all to go back and just like all of them, because like again, my list is a lot shorter because any of those people that were acquaintances really before, that I didn't have any connection with, it's just gone. That's been disconnected for a long time. So less people, right? So I'll like them, and then instead of like replying to any of them, right, I just make one post usually the next day that says, hey, I appreciate everybody's birthday wishes, had a great day, or whatever that I want to say about the previous day, of whether it was good or crappy because I had to work or whatever, right? So it's just easy. Means I acknowledged everybody individually, but I also acknowledged them as public, one big post. But I'm also like you, where I'm not on Facebook a ton. Like literally, if I didn't have a few business things, also this podcast included, that's being live streamed to Facebook, which is how we have gotten a few people over the past couple episodes, including Robin on this one right now that's watching, right? Like if I didn't have that to post on there, I probably would have gotten rid of my Facebook account.
Yeah. Well, gotten rid of, right? I don't think you can fully delete a Facebook account because you could just re-sign back in and it's just like everything's there.
Yeah, I would have deactivated it, right? Like that, because there's really no way to delete it. But yes.
Yeah.
All
That's
right.
that's crazy. I just think I think liking it is totally acceptable. You know, commenting on every single one maybe is just like it's just too much, especially if it was a good friend from high school or something. You're
Yeah.
just like, thank you. Oh my gosh, what are you up to? How are you? Then it's just like the awkward conversations, and they'll reply back, I'm good. I just had this and this happened. Oh my gosh, how are you? And then it goes back like 3 or 4 messages. And then you get to a point where you're just like, I don't really want to respond anymore. And they're in the same boat. They're like, I don't really want to respond either. And then it just like stops.
Yeah, if we kept this going far too long, I really just want to be like, hope you're okay. Thanks. You don't need to reply to it.
Yeah, I've had those. It's
All right.
awkward.
Well, we appreciate everybody joining us this week. As we mentioned on one of the last episodes and everything, we're going to try to keep the recorded podcast for online that you can listen after the fact down to 20 to 35 minutes, somewhere in that range. Anybody that's watching the live stream with us now, we may run all the way up completely to an hour because we may cut the episode into multiple different sections that we're going to post for multiple different episodes. So we appreciate everybody joining with us, whether you're live or recorded afterwards. Find the actual audio podcast on any of the podcatcher apps that you may so choose to use. I recommend iTunes or Google Podcast or Spotify. Those are 3 that are easy, that are the most mainstream ones that everybody uses. So appreciate everybody joining us with us this next week, and hopefully you will have all 3 crazy average guys next week. See everybody
Next week.